check. Thank you for tuning in today live on DentonRadio.com. We are happy to have y'all with us today. I've got some, actually this is my first show in 3 weeks. All right. So you guys are my first guests on here in 3 weeks. I'm pretty excited for it. I want you to introduce yourselves. That's how we like to do it here. Say hello to the people out there in the world of Facebook if you like. You first, sir.
My name is Francisco Liao, a.k.a. Diggo. That's what people call me around here.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Midland, Texas, but I grew up in Denton. Texas.
Right on. And you, my man?
My name is Todd Little, originally from Dallas, but I've lived here for about 13 years. So
Todd Little has a voice made for radio.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's some strange emotions coming about
it
me
comes
right
from
now.
listening to a lot of Barry White.
I assume these things, man. I assume. So today, I'm glad to have you guys on. You're the first people in about 4 weeks, almost a month. I think the last person I interviewed was this guy, Gray Matters, who I met at Oaktopia. But there's just been a lot of stuff going on here, and I don't know. I guess people like to party the night before, and then they're like, "Hey, I can't make it." But I'm glad you guys did. At first, I was like, "I wonder if they're going to,"
Nah.
But yeah, I looked back. I was like, "Okay, we did talk about this.
We talked about it.
Yeah,
We
man.
confirmed.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. So today on the program, I'm a little rusty, like I said, since it's been a little time asking the questions and stuff and doing the interviews. But today, we definitely want to discuss. I definitely want to talk to you about Real Rad. I want to talk to you about, your new track that you've got coming out or new record, stuff that's been going on, life, love, stress, setbacks, and of course snacks.
Yes, snacks.
We
definitely.
always talk snacks. But let's start it off, man. I always like to know, and you guys can go back and forth. These are casual interviews. We're hanging out, having a good time. It's nothing where we're too locked down. So if you guys just start going off on tangent stories, go right ahead. That's
All right.
not a problem here on Sound Values, man. That's what it's all about. But just to kind of start things off, we'll have a little music in the background here, but nothing too loud over the top. But just to start things off, Diggo, what would you say is your first musical memory? When you remember hearing some tunes for the first time and you really reacted to it.
I think for me it was La Bamba.
La Bamba.
Yeah, with it was Lou Diamond Phillips, and I remember my sister May. She had this tape of La Bamba, and
Nice.
she keeps on telling me this story that I kept on just stealing her tape and just playing it hours on end until it popped. So that was my favorite. I mean, that's my earliest memory of music, and that just resonated with
Lou
me.
Diamond Phillips. That's
Yeah,
what's up, man.
Yeah, he was the guy.
That's
but-
what's up. How about you, man?
God, I remember my parents took me when I was probably 6 years old to an Alabama concert. So the first concert I ever, and they're both Kiwis, so which
Yes.
is even more weird because it's why are you guys in a country? But maybe they're trying to assimilate a little bit too much in Texas, but by going to an Alabama concert.
Yeah.
But that's what I remember. I mean, that was probably one of my first. And then I remember my dad had an acoustic guitar, and I think he used to, like Homer Simpson bought Marge a bowling ball.
Yeah.
I think he kind of just casually bought it like he was going to play it, but he never actually learned
Honey,
how.
I
So-
bought you this.
That's surprisingly kind of. I think my dad wanted to play the guitar, and
Yeah.
I remember my mom bought him one.
Yeah.
But he said this, not me, so I can't get any flack for this. His fingers are too fat to actually play the guitar. He can't actually his mine are, and then they skinny out. His is just like someone just took a hammer and just
You
on
might be a good bass
on a
player.
piece of clay.
Yeah.
It was, so he could not play. Yeah, he could slap at a bass real
Yeah.
well. And so I actually picked up his guitar, and that's where I started.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
because of his non-purchase that he never used.
It's-
Now I'm in here. So thanks for that, Dad.
Yeah, it was reserved for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's cool, man. That's cool. Everybody's always got their different experience. Mine is Garth Brooks.
Garth Brooks.
And what's funny, I forget who it is who I interviewed, but it might have actually been Gray Matters, but he and I had two very similar ones because we're close to the same age, and he talked about this Garth Brooks concert that was in Dallas that they filmed, and I was like, dude, I have seen this concert. I know this. I know this for sure. That's really cool. So you said you grew up where?
I grew up in Denton, but I was born in Midland.
Okay,
Midland, Texas.
How long did you live in Midland?
Oh man, I was only there for like 2 years.
Okay,
I
so-
moved around a lot when I was little. In West Texas, I mean, I lived in Alpine, Texas. I lived in small towns like Pio, Monahans, Lubbock, Texas, and then ultimately came to Denton, and then I've been here since. I mean,
So how long is that?
oh man, I've been here for probably 15 years.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm definite Dentonite, definite old school Dentonite.
Yeah,
so.
for sure, for sure. So when all those new kids are like, "You don't even know what Denton's about," you're
Yeah.
like, "Actually,
I definitely
kind of do a little bit here." and
He had
there."
a studio literally on Denton Street, so it doesn't get more Denton than that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Ex-
so-
exactly. Unless you had like a tattoo parlor right next door to it, and
or just a
craft
tattoo
brewery.
that said
yeah.
Denton. But no, and then I went to a UNT, and I just stayed in Denton, and it's a different culture when you grow up and then you experience it as as an adult or a college, I guess, student. It's definitely a different culture. It's a different vibe, but I love the town, and that's why I'm still here.
Yeah. What about you, Todd? What brought you here?
basically school.
Yeah.
So my oldest brother went to UNT and studied graphic design, and that's what I did as well. So that's what brought me up here. And
Hey, that's what brings a lot of us here.
Yeah.
There's like 37,000 students at that school, you
Yeah.
know, so it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
there's like a third of the town is that school right there. you
Yeah.
know? That's what I was checking that out because we have like people from all over the world come in here and they always ask like how many people live in Denton, and I think it's like 120 plus thousand or something like that, and you've got 30,000 kids at the school, so quite a bit of the school is the actual like population here. I think almost everyone that I've interviewed, besides like a couple people, like one of the guys from Biographies, he grew up like, you know, just north of here, you know, but most people, they like came to Denton, you know, because of school. Like Hen and the Cox, if you guys ever, I don't know if y'all have even ever seen them, but they were like, yeah, we're all from Houston and we all just happened to move up here to go to school at like different times. So
wow.
Yeah.
so thanks to UNT for bringing good music to the area, man. But
Definitely.
let's see, and I like to get different perspectives. So how did you meet this guy? And then you're gonna tell me your perspective on how you met this guy. So what's the story of how you met him?
I was in a group called Fab Deuce, which definitely Denton famous. We were doing shows here. We were doing shows on Fry Street before, I guess, the redevelopment of Fry Street. There was TJ's Pizza was there. They were doing shows there. They had an outside venue. And he would just go to shows. I mean, he was going to school here at UNT, and he was in the scene. And we just kind of rub shoulders, you know, and same kind of scene, same kind of vibe, and we met each other. And then one day, actually, my car, something happened to my car. It wouldn't start or
Yeah.
something, you know, some kind of college
Yeah,
student
exactly.
problem.
Some college glitch.
Yeah, and I called everybody. Nobody answered the phone. I couldn't get a hold of anybody, and I just met him at a show, and I was like, I'm gonna call this guy. I mean, he was a cool guy. He was a cool guy, and it seemed like, you know, when you just click, you just know, you feel like
Yeah.
you knew somebody in a different lifetime or something.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like I knew him, you know, maybe in the 1800s or something.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
picked me up on horseback.
Yeah.
Well, I called him, and he helped me out.
Yeah, that's
and
what's
he came, he picked me up, and we went straight to his house, and he's like, yeah, I got a studio set up and everything, and we made a song that day.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much
Basically
right.
how
Yeah.
it went. What shows were you going to? Like what was the scene? Because I've lived here for, you know, almost 3.5 years, almost going on almost 4 years.
There was,
you know.
there was the original Fab Deuce was playing a lot. There was Vortexes, so that
Yeah.
was Matt P, Ian, Juice, who am I missing? RCA.
Yeah.
And they were playing a lot too, and that was pretty much the kind of scene that I saw
Yeah.
happen, and it was more kind of central to basically playing at Texas Jive, and right there. I mean, maybe a Cool Beans occasionally.
Yeah.
Rubber Gloves.
Rubber Gloves,
That's.
definitely.
I mean, the Square definitely wasn't like what it was, and Andy's occasionally, but
Yeah. I
I
I remember it was just Fab Deuce, Vortexes. I remember Matt Gibson was So Relentless,
Yeah.
and he was doing Hip Hopostra. And that was pretty much the scene that I knew of. Like, hip hop
Yeah.
shows weren't as prevalent as they are now. You know, they were more kind of just like house shows and yeah, that was the scene that I remember. You know.
How long ago was this?
Oh man, it was probably a decade ago.
Wow, so you guys have known each other for 10 years.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what's up, man. That's what's up. So you moved around a little bit, but you grew up in Denton, is
Yes.
what you would say. How did you, you know, a lot of people, I've interviewed people who play, you know, acoustic guitar, rock, hip hop, but how did you find, and jazz as well, shout out to Horace, what got you into hip hop, you know?
What got me into hip hop is moving around a lot, and that I just sometimes whenever you move around a lot, you kind of have to find solace in your own kind of thing, you know. And I have you know, 4 other siblings. My mom, you know, she was a single mother that raised us. She was always busy, and I was the youngest in my family. And hip hop just resonated with me, and I think it resonated with just kind of our whole generation, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just kind of found solace in that, and I just loved the poetry of it. I loved, you know, I was just so interested in how the music was made, the beats, the rhymes, and I fell in love with it, you know. And it spoke to me, and I think it spoke to kind of this whole kind of generation. That's why it's gotten so popular, and that's really why. I mean, my first hip hop record that I listened to was Outkast, Aquemini.
Okay.
And it was that Rosa Parks song.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just fell in love with it. I saw my sister with one of her friends. They came into the house and they were just singing that part. And I just was like, wow, that's so awesome. I saw that, you know, affect them in such a way that I wanted to be a part of something like that. So that's what.
Yeah, that's cool. So I find it interesting when you talk about poetry, like the poetry of it all. So I've been teaching like 8th grade U.S. history as part of like my last thing I had to do before I graduate.
Yeah.
And across the hall is the English room, and they're doing poetry right now. And a lot of the kids are like, I was like, what's your poem about? And this kid was like, I'm making a poem about how poetry is stupid. And I was like, you like hip hop, right? And he's like, yeah. I was like, hip hop is poetry.
Yeah.
And he was like, what? No, it's not. I was like, yes, it is. It just gets covered up, especially nowadays with a lot of the music you hear today. It's hard to defend that as poetry, but the fact is, at the end of the day, what you're supposed to be doing is rhyming words.
Yeah.
You know? So I forget, like, I don't even remember what person said it, but like Dr. Seuss was a rapper, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you would put him
I would
to
agree with that.
put
I
him
mean,
to a beat, Dr. Seuss would have been rapping. Dr.
definitely.
Seuss could have spit some flows, you know?
especially for his time. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah, he was innovative, you know?
Yeah.
He was edgy. You
He
know?
was edgy,
He
but
was
what's
edgy.
great about him is that he can make big ideas by saying just simple. And there's an art to that, just saying simple, you know, rhymes that they're not too complicated, easy to remember, but they can communicate big ideas or even be, you know, kind of interpreted into whoever the, you know, the audience is
Yeah.
you know, whatever they get out of it.
Exactly.
So that was great about him.
Yeah. How about you, Todd? How did you get into the hip hop scene and all that?
I think I remember my first CD was like it was like Aerosmith Pump, and I remember getting that, and I was really into that, and then I think it was always kind of, you know, molded by my oldest brother because he would always buy me CDs for Christmas, and it would always, you know, it wouldn't be what I wanted, it would be what he think I needed.
Yeah.
And so it was, you know, it was Aerosmith, and then it was like Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then it was like Sublime, and then he got me Bizarre Ride from the Far Side, and
Nice.
then he got me into DJ Shadow, and that's when I realized like you could produce records all by yourself. You know, I'd played in bands before that, and that was, you know, I mean, everybody understands that can be a hassle. 5 different people, 5 different sets of problems, schedules.
Exactly.
So I was like, oh, you can make music by yourself, and I just got a Mac, and I had GarageBand, and so that's when I really, back in like 2003, that's when I really started to get into it.
Definitely.
And, I've just been making music ever since. So
Do you ever find it like, because the one thing that I run into is people are like, oh, you make music, what do you play?
yeah,
And I'm kind of like, well, it's a combination of things. I use a keyboard to do about 99% of what I do, but when I'm on stage, I might be playing something, I might not. Like what you should be impressed by is not necessarily my performance, but what I've done behind the scenes and then brought it like to what you're seeing. So how do you explain to people like what you do as far as a producer?
I mean, there's that famous Jim Morrison quote where he talks about, he's like, in the future it's gonna be one person with a bunch of tape machines and, you know, doing that, and it's kind of like that. It's, you know, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are like, this is Mikey. He's a DJ, and you're like, well, no, I'm not really a DJ.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh man.
yeah.
When I get called a DJ, I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, if somebody calls me a DJ, I always think of Spin Mo, and I'm like, no, he's a
He's a
DJ.
DJ.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
real DJ.
Yeah.
I'm not a DJ.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I think it's more. I think if you explain it from the aspect of being more of like a composer, that's basically what you're doing. And so whatever tools you have, we may not use the typical tools of a traditional composer, but we still do things along the same lines.
Yeah,
So.
and what I think is unique about kind of our experience and just our generation is that, before us, they didn't have the technology, to be able to, I guess, integrate multiple things and to be able to do things that before you couldn't, Mozart didn't have, I mean, he was just writing on sheet music and really we're just kind of, standing on top of giant shoulders, I mean, if you will. It's given us a unique opportunity to be able to create and to find ourselves and give, an opportunity for people that never would in their lifetime to be able to do it, because technology has made it cheaper. Technology has made it to where you can be in a room by yourself and you can, have a MIDI keyboard and you can, run however many instruments you want over it, and you can, chop samples, and you can, bring in vinyl, and there's just so many different avenues to create. But sometimes it's like overwhelming because, I have to like limit myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just like stick to these drum kits and I'm going to stick to this kind of patches, and because it's like, it's almost overwhelming.
There's
Yeah, the sky's the-
thousands
yeah.
of things you can do.
It's the omnivore's dilemma.
Yeah,
there's
right.
just too many choices.
Great book, by the way. It's a good sociology drop right
yeah,
there.
a little
dude.
reference right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, especially on like the options. It's like when I first started doing it, about 7 years ago, I went to a show and I was just like, I just want to figure out how he's making that noise. I was kind of more like, I always loved hip hop, but I was kind of more like into that, like the smashing together of these different genres, where you were slamming like electronic sounds together with hip hop now all of a sudden. Like
Yeah.
Pretty Lights was doing that. And that was
Yeah.
the first person I saw where I was like, I need to know how to do this, like that is what I want to hear. Like you're combining this old school soul and funky stuff with this new school hip hop electronic genre. Like I got to figure out how to do that. But then the options, and there's so much that's available. I tell a lot of kids when they're first starting off, I'm like, just find like 5 or 6 cents that you like, or sounds or keys or whatever, and start working with those to begin with, and just kind of get a feel for what you want to do, have an idea of what your sound is and what you want to make. And like I heard this author, and it translates directly to music too. This author was talking about how like when you're a child you have this thing called the terrible twos, and it's where you're getting old enough to where you want to do things and like move and walk and like do all this stuff, but your body's still not ready to do it. And so he says like when you're a writer, you go through the same thing. You're writing and you know what you want to write, but you cannot get it down on that paper.
Yeah.
And in music and all that, you're like, I know what I want to do, but it takes years and years and years to finally be like, that's what I wanted, and now it's actually there. Even in music, you go through those terrible twos.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's countless blank sheets of paper. I'm just sitting there like, what do I do?
Yeah,
right
what am
now?
I gonna
What am I
say?
gonna say?
Yeah.
And you doubt yourself, and then you go through different emotions, and eventually you put something down and you think it's great, and you come back the next day and you figure out it's horrible, and and then you show it to somebody and you get that feeling where it's like, okay, I need to work on this some more.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all feel that, I always call it, and we all see like the memes and stuff. That's what's so great about the universal experience of people who do produce or make hip hop. It's like, this was dope last night. Now it's terrible. Like, what was I thinking? Like,
Beep, 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 beep.
and
You're
you
like,
and your boys the night before. Oh,
Yes. She's like, do you hear that progression? Oh my God, it's so
those
amazing.
808s
Yeah.
are on
Those are
point.
hit.
Yeah.
It's all not quantized the next morning. It's just like, oh, why is it dragging?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Drinking coffee and you're just like, what? What's
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on
Or there's
here?
that
Was
moment
there
where
another
you
file?
show your boy the beat, and then
Yeah.
you're like, ready. Oh, and then both of you are disappointed.
Then you start doing that thing. You're like, it's not mixed
Yeah,
yet.
hold on,
Like,
dog,
it's
my
not-
bad,
yeah,
my
yeah,
bad.
Yeah, hold up.
Yeah, that's why, like, I tell a lot of people, I'm like, look, if you're going to tell someone it's not ready yet, if that's going to be in your thought, like, I really want to show this to someone, but I'm going to say, hey, it's not completely done yet, don't even show it to them.
Yeah,
Unless
you're
it's like a
probably right,
buddy
yeah.
of yours and you're
Yeah.
doing it for advice. But if it's somebody that you don't really know, or somebody maybe you're trying to, like, get to know musically or anything, an MC, producer, until you've developed I'll send you stuff I'm working on,
Yeah.
you know, be like, hey, check this stuff out, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But you should always preface it with, I'm working on this, check it out, not, hey, check out this new track. Oh wait, it's not done yet. You know?
I mean, sometimes you could say it's not done yet, and somebody else could lend their ears to it and be like, you know what, that it sounds like it's done.
Yeah,
You know,
true.
just mix it down, man. It's done. Like, I don't think you could really.
Yeah.
I wouldn't add or take away anything from it. I think it's already there.
Last night I was playing and I didn't realize that I had put in my set a track that I had not mastered yet.
Yeah.
And I all of a sudden when I heard it, I was like, uh-oh, but it sounded solid.
Yeah.
Like I was like, yo, does that sound all right to y'all? You
Yeah.
know, like yeah. And I was like, all right, cool. You know, so we'll do the mastering stuff that's necessary, but it was good to have like
Yeah.
that reassurance that after you've sat in front of a computer or whatever for that long, that's all you needed. You know, it's good to go.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like you writing, like, is there a process for you? Do you write with a beat? Do you write in silence? Do you just kind of like write a few bars, come back, write? Like,
It's a combination. You know, sometimes I'll be making a beat and I'll write along with it. Sometimes I'll be hanging out with like, you know, Todd and he's making a beat or producing something, and you know, I'll just come up with something on the fly. And I mean, sometimes I need to write, sometimes I just kind of come up with it and we just go in the booth and do it. I think as you learn to make music, you start to discover that there's absolutely no rules.
Yeah.
Like you can do anything, you know. I mean, there's sometimes where I'm using a piece of paper, there's sometimes where I'm writing on my phone, there's sometimes where I don't write at all. I just go in there and start doing stuff, and then, you know, I'm like, oh, that's, you know, we'll scratch that, go back to it. Or so yeah, it's just a combination. And you know, making music and discovering that, and like we're saying, you know, over time as you make more music, you kind of get more comfortable in your skin and find your sound. And I think that you start kind of developing the confidence to be like, yeah, there is no rules. I can do what I want. I can, you know, if this doesn't work, guess what? We have, you know, it's technology. We can just press delete and go back and do it again.
Yeah.
So, and that's, you know, that's pretty awesome that be able to do that, and it just changes the way that people work, you know. And I think, you know, I was always fascinated with the stories of like, you have like Notorious B.I.G. and Jay-Z, where these guys, they wouldn't even write. Like they would just go in there and they would just hear something or work on something, and they would just continue to just develop it and go back over the lines until they just have it by memory. And I was always fascinated by that. I thought just kind of the story, the legend of it was really cool. But yeah, it just kind of goes to show that, yeah, there is no rules. I mean, one day you can go in there and you have a great idea, and then one day, you know, you have to sit there for 2 hours and write something. So
definitely, I understand that. So Todd, you, like, when you sit down to work on a beat, what do you normally start on first? You know, do you start with, some people start with drums. Like I usually go and I just grab a grand piano and I just start right there.
I probably leave the drums for last. I'll either find a good sample, chop it up, or I'll start with I'll start with a melody basically. And so whatever that change is going to be, I think is going to drive, because I feel like ultimately if that's kind of the core of the song, if it's not good, then, you know, I mean, you could, I don't know. There's a million ways to do it, but usually that's how I start. It's just basically a melody or a sample or something like really solid that I could listen to over and over and over again. And that way I know it's good. And then whatever I add to it, I can keep kind of simple, and it's still going to have some longevity to it.
yeah, I think I definitely start with, most of the time, I would say 80% of the time, I start with drums. I usually go to bass. But if I'm just kind of, you know, just trying to, you know, come up with something that's just going to strike me after the drums and the bass, then yeah, I'll definitely just go grand piano and start just, you know, plucking away until something resonates. And then, yeah, once you get to that point where it's like you kind of just step back and you're like, whoa, this is making me feel something.
Yeah.
You know, then that's whenever you kind of dig in deeper and you just kind of stick to that vibe. But it's hard because it just grows organically as it's happening, but you always want to keep that, you know, that core of what you originally came up with, but it can easily just go into left field. Because I mean, you sit there for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then, you know, over time period, you're like, what was the original vibe that I had going?
I'll have tracks that I work on, and it's like 2 days later, it's nothing that it started out as, you know, because you're like, you know, the thing, you wake up and you're like, okay, well, that really wasn't as tight as I thought it was.
Yeah.
And that's like my tester. That's what I do. I'm like, okay, let's listen, let's leave it and let's come back in 3 or 4 days. If it gets me excited again in those 3 or 4 days, then we know we had something that's sounding that's gonna grab the audience, you know, or grab the listener. So and see, it's interesting because the more producers that I talk to, they've got different ways of going about things. You know, like you're like, I'll grab drums and bass, and you're like, I'm gonna start with a melody. You know, me, it kind of depends. Like sometimes I'm like, I have no creative juice today, so let's go grab a sample and start working from there.
Yeah.
Or if like for some reason my fingers like it's just not happening, you know, or if I can't make this. Like I've had tracks where I've worked on with samples for like months and nothing ever happens, and then I just forget about it, and then one day I'm like, whatever, let's see, and then all of a sudden it works. Like I just found like that part for some reason that starts to work in the track. So very cool, man. Do you have any of your tunes on like a USB? We'll go ahead and plug that and plug those bad boys in. So let's talk about the formation of Real Rad, and real quick, because for me, moving up here, I didn't know anybody. I knew one kid who lived here, and he doesn't even live here anymore. But when I got here, I was like, you know what? There's not. He was just here. No, he's not here. Now he's gone. Yeah, Mitchell, living up in Colorado now.
Hey, Mitchell.
Yeah, Mitchell. So I came up here, and I was going to shows with him, and I was going to like Andy's, and this was when I guess they were doing like a lot of more electronic shows in this area. You know, you had Denton Dance Collective with Chase and some other guys were really. So I was going to a lot of those. And
like
they had
Pub Step.
pubs. Yeah, I was going to that stuff, and I noticed that like sure it was cool, but there was no really lighting that was here, and I was just trying to find a way to like get in and meet these guys. You know, like. You know, because everybody will walk up to you and say, hey, man, I make beats, you know, or I do this or I do that, you know. But I was like, I need to find a way to have a reason for these people to want to know who I am. So I noticed that there wasn't any really good a whole lot of lighting going on. And so that was like, I went out and I bought some equipment and did some research and approached them. And I was like, hey, I have all this stuff. I would love to start setting these things up.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was like how I started getting into the scene, was getting to know those guys. And then I started working on just like other forms of beats. Then all of a sudden, like somebody was like, you should apply for Octopia. And I was like, okay, you know. So I did, and by some miracle, Danielle booked me, and that was with y'all. You know, when you guys were doing the Real Rad spotlight at Andy's, you know, and so. I just remember, like, that was super tight for me when you approached me and you were like, that was dope. Who are you?
We both watched that. We were like, who is this?
Yeah, exactly.
We've never seen this guy.
Yeah,
it's like, wait, he lives in Denton?
Yeah,
like,
that was really. I remember, and I have that status that I posted recently. And I was like, it's cool when a dude actually wants to talk and actually does talk and has a business to talk about. You know? Because I remember, like, so many people, they'd approach and be like, yo, man, these beats are tight. Let's work together. Let's work. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
But then finally someone to be like, hey, I'm serious about it. Like, let's actually put out, a song. And then you guys put out a track of mine, which was awesome. Put me in, like, you guys have basically been really cool to me is what I'm trying to say.
Right on.
So thank you very much. Like, even to, like, this day, I think that banner you made for the Music to Cuddle to, you know, that, like, that was, my buddy was like, dude, who made that? That was like that was like the perfect vibe for what I was trying to create with that whole album and that track. And then putting on that, that show we did was fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
We donated like 80 jackets and sweaters just by doing that, which is sweet. So rest in peace, Dan's, but that was a good time, man. You know,
we should do it again.
I know.
Definitely should do it again.
That's what I'm trying to say here. But let's. What do you guys? Because to me, and I don't see, like, we had this conversation started happening where the Denton music scene was dead, and I feel like that conversation's kind of died down a little bit now. Maybe because the election has consumed everyone, which we won't talk about. But that has, But how do you guys feel about that? Just kind of a few venues closing down, things changing. It doesn't seem like y'all are nervous at all, but I'd still ask the question: is there any anxiety?
For me, no. I mean, I embrace change. I think that's something that's inevitable. And I believe that, I wholeheartedly believe that change, if you look at the history of mankind, you look at everything, if you want to put it on that broad of a scope, we've always progressed, and I think Denton is progressing, and I think Denton's just changing. And change is, yeah, it will bring some anxieties, and the unknown is a little nerve-wracking sometimes. But I think whenever there's a change, and if there is maybe a little bit of chaos, that creates opportunity, you know. And I also, and I think the people that are confident in themselves and believe in themselves and believe in the people that are around them, I think that's whenever you make strides. And like you were saying, you notice something in the scene where you're like, look, I don't notice lighting. You know, so I mean, you kind of, that's evolving the scene. You know, that's where a change happens. You know, whenever somebody notices something, you're like, well, I'm going to bring this to the table. Or in Denton, you know, there's developments that are coming in. There's things that are happening where they're like, look, I noticed this isn't here, so I'm going to provide this. And then you know, somebody else that had their run and did their thing, you know, and they move on to something else in their life. But that's what life is all about. It's about evolving. It's about changing. And I mean, I just don't think we should be scared of that. I think that we should, you know, embrace it and just do our part. And that's what's gonna, you know, that change is gonna make it into a positive change. You know,
for sure. You know, and that's what I when I was at the TJ's, at the J&J's last shows that they were doing in the basement. This guy came up to me and he was like, I'm doing a interview, like a piece for this and this. Can I interview you real quick? Because I had like a hashtag Dentoning shirt on, so I guess he thought I knew what I was talking about. And so, and I was like, yeah, sure. He was like, are you scared? And I was like, not at all. I was like, when I moved up here, I wasn't playing any shows. I was playing little house parties, doing this, doing that, and then slowly but surely, I got booked for other stuff. And like, I think a lot of people get concerned because they're worried about how am I going to get paid if I'm not playing at a venue. Well, I had some students who found out that I was DJing or I played around town, and they're like, how did you get to the point where you got paid to do it? And I was like, you played 100 non-paid shows or whatever, you know.
Or you set up the gig yourself.
Yeah, set up the gig yourself, you know, and do that, you know. And if you know, like the people who are throwing Band Together, you know, Band Together Denton, it's like a 2-day house shows with like 120 bands that are playing.
Yeah.
Like that's an amazing concept and a great idea and a great response. You know, not complaining, but figuring out how are we going to solve this problem. Like
yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue was, I mean, it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. I mean, for people that have, you know, I mean, you haven't been around super long, but you're still established enough that you know your inroads. You know, you have your avenues. And I think what people were worried about was these new acts and these new bands. And, you know, places like Rubber Gloves, you know, they would have those experimental bands and they would offer them kind of a place to play and J&J's and you know, and I think by losing places like that, I think that's where people were worried about it. But I think if you're kind of a young growing artist, all you gotta do is ask and just go to the bartender and be like, who does the booking? And I mean, if they're not there, you know, you can get their number and just do your research and go talk to people. And what I've noticed is that everybody, I mean, that's their job. Everybody's more than willing to answer questions and help you out and try to get you on bills or, you know, if you can get a lineup together, then to even give you a whole night.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you get paid, you know?
Yeah.
I think in being a musician and taking on that endeavor and it's a risk, you know. You're pretty much telling yourself that people are going to care about the stuff that I create, you know. And I think if you're already taking that risk, well, then you might as well have the audacity to take another risk. And that risk is, you know, trying something new or bringing your friends together to throw a festival, you know. I mean, kind of like the Utopia guys. I mean, how that started, they were, you know, those guys.
Some dudes who said, let's throw a festival.
Let's throw a festival,
yeah.
And they took a risk, you know. And I think that you can't be scared to take a risk. You can't be scared to kind of, you know, take that step and hope that, you know, stairway just appears. You know, you have to jump out there, and you can't just, you know, eventually, you know, just like creating, whenever you create something and you take a risk by showing somebody something that you created, you know, sometimes, you know, if they don't like it and it's a failure, you know what, that is the first step towards, you know, success. Failure is that, you know. So, I mean, I embrace failure, I embrace change, and I think that's what Denton music scene needs to do, and take risk and organize and come together and say, hey, we're going to put our money together, or we're going to do the house shows. And I think that Denton, you know, has the musicians, has the talent, and you know, taking those risks, I think will, you know, make it to where you will benefit off.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of the people who own venues or things around here are older, and so it's you know, it's good for them to see, you know, a younger people taking a more business kind of initiative to say, hey, we're not really seeing this. This is something that we want. And then those people who kind of have that financial backing and go, hey, wait a minute, I like what I see out of you guys. Let's try to make something happen because I love this town. I want to be a part of it too.
Exactly.
I'm a little bit older, so maybe I've kind of, you know, I'm not really, you know, I'm not really in the scene like y'all are. Let's put something together, you know. You know, which is like what you said about like the Octopia guys. I mean, those cats didn't have millions of dollars. They went out and found some people who believed in what they believed in and supported this idea of let's put Denton on the map as far as a place that can provide hundreds of artists for an outlet and can bring in national acts. You know, the fact that we've had Ray Shrimmerd, Sarah Jaffe, Immortal Technique.
Oh yeah.
Nora Jones, exactly, like these, and you know, Edward Sharp, the Magnetic Zeros, in a town of 100,000 people, you know,
even, you know, 35,
right down there.
3510, you know,
Yeah.
Bismarcky, like all those, you know, just, basically in your backyard. I mean, it's kind of amazing that all of this is, you feel obligated.
You never
to
know
go.
what can happen if you just ask, like you said.
Just
Just ask. All they can do, like I remember I was doing sales. It was the worst job I ever had. I was literally going business to business selling framed and matted sports pictures.
Oh,
So like if
wow.
you walk into a Boston's like or a Buffalo Wild Wings and there's those stuff on the wall, I sold that stuff cold call door to door.
Wow.
And it was
That's rough.
I paid 3 months rent doing it. And the company even like sent me up to Baltimore because I was so good at it. But
Oh, really?
eventually you realize what a soulless individual you've become to
Yeah.
sell these pictures. And so I literally yeah. And so, but my boss, he taught me something that was pretty cool. I had the guys who actually were my bosses might have been the best scam out I've ever sent in the world. I don't know if they were, but they were really actually some good guys as far as just like mentors. And this guy was just like, you know, he was like, you have to get so used to hearing the word no that it doesn't even bother you
Oh, yeah.
anymore. That it's just like, no, all I heard was maybe. I'll be back.
Yeah.
You know? So never be afraid to ask, you know, because all they're going to say is no. And that might hurt for the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But if you're the type of person that you do need to be in order to succeed when you want to perform your music, then 15 minutes later, you're figuring out how can I make that guy not say no?
Yeah.
How am
Yeah,
I going
I
to
mean,
get you to say yes?
That worst case scenario has never ever happened to me.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're afraid to talk to somebody, you know, even if I remember talking to Head Crack, you know, and I was like, he was playing a show up at Andy's, and I'm like, man, this guy's on a nationally syndicated radio show.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go talk to him, but I don't know, man. He's kind of famous, and I went talking. He came outside and talked to me for a good 30, 45 minutes, and was
Yeah.
one of the most like down to earth people. So it's like even, you know, like getting on stage and you're like, what's the worst case scenario that could happen? Like everybody would boo me. Like,
Yeah.
that has never
Yeah.
happened. Like
Yeah.
at most they just seem like just a little excited. They're
Yeah.
not, you know, like you're like, okay, all right. But nobody's ever like, boo, get off this thing,
Yeah.
like throwing stuff at you. Like
Yeah, nobody's throwing lettuce and tomatoes.
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah,
No,
right.
The cane has never come
Yeah,
out and
exactly,
pulled me,
yeah.
and pulled
Get outta
me
here.
this is
back.
not the Apollo. So
Yeah.
But I think that the answer is already no.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't ask, the answer is already no.
Exactly.
And if you do ask and they do say no, either way, you gain information to get you closer to that yes.
Yeah.
If you pay attention and you're nice and you're hardworking and you're honest, that's gonna reflect in people. It's gonna shine on other people, and they're gonna notice that. And if they say no, I mean, most people, you know, I believe most people are nice people, you know, and usually there's a reason why they're saying no. And so I think just taking that extra step to find out maybe why they said no, you know, and but I think it always gets you closer, and it's always failure, no's, all those things. They're all learning experiences that get you closer to success. You
Yes,
know?
sir. Yeah.
You know, there wasn't. I mean, Mozart did. I mean, yeah, I guess he was doing stuff at 4 or 5 years old. But you know, the Picassos, the Mozarts, they made stuff that wasn't that good, or people told them that no to them as well. So
Exactly.
you know, but that's what you got to do.
I mean, everybody hated all of Stanley Kubrick's movies when they came out.
Yeah.
Everybody just chopped them up. And
Nobody
said they hated
nobody
them.
understands the true artist until you're gone.
Yeah, they
Until
didn't.
you're gone.
They didn't understand he was like, you know, ahead of them. So
Yeah, exactly. So we've kind of talked about the process of like getting a show or being at a show or developing your show, but what was like the first show that you can remember playing, you know?
The first show I remember playing was with Fab Deuce, and I believe Vortexus booked it for us. I mean, we're good friends with those guys, and it was at Andy's. And it was me, Pudge, Blaine, and Austin as the original four of the Fab Deuce. And yeah, that's what we played that show, and we walked in, and we were just happy to do it. You know, we're like, oh, sweet, we get to do our you know our stuff on a stage.
Yep.
And then we start walking in with turntables and in records, and we see like there's actually people here, and we're like, oh my gosh, there's people here.
Yeah.
So we're like, we have to do a show.
How old were you when this happened?
I probably 21.
21?
Yeah, probably 20, 21.
Nice.
And yeah, that's when we had, you know, the Funky Forest was the first Fab Deuce record.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we just got up on stage and did our, you know, our rhymes and our beats, and people were like, yeah, that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you get that feeling, you know, where people respond to you and you get a positive response, yeah, it kind of hooks you. It's like, you know, it's kind of, they say, you know, that actor's bug or the entertainer's bug. And yeah, once that bit me, I was like, yeah, I gotta get back. I gotta make something that people are gonna be like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah,
so,
you want to keep going.
Yeah.
So Todd, I've never seen you on stage. You know, I've been to your place and seen the studio. I think you've actually moved since then, but it was incredibly well organized, way more than mine. That's what I'm always ashamed. People are like, hey man, just come over and check out your studio. I'm like, no. You don't get to see that mess.
You're like
I'm
making
sorry.
beats on a microwave.
You saw that thing I walked in that one time. You're like, dude, is that a 1988 like
It was
keyboard
sweet.
thing?
You
Whatever.
were busting jams.
Yeah, and I was like,
I still have the first keyboard I ever got.
Yeah?
So I'm gonna hold on to that.
so like, you know, what was, I guess, so do you get on stage? Did you used to get on stage, or?
I did. It's, you know, I mean, you talk to people and they're like, you know, they live for that. You know, they love being on stage. I personally, you know, it's kind of like a Ricky Bobby thing. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know. I get on stage, like, I don't enjoy it. I'm nervous. I tend to like try to counteract that nervousness by having a couple beers, maybe a couple too many before, and then, you know, you got to use your mouthpiece, and that affects that. And you know, I've never been a huge fan of being on stage. I think, you know, I'm kind of transitioning more towards being a producer and kind of doing more what you do as far as being on stage. And I think I would feel a lot more comfortable doing that. But yeah, I mean, I've done quite a few big shows and opened up for, I mean, we used to be in a group, the Neighborhood All Stars. We opened up for like Vanilla Ice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Firewater in Dallas. Yeah.
I did a couple songs with my buddy Excalibur to open it up for Paul Wall.
Yeah.
Cool.
I emceed for a reggae band. We did down at San Antonio. We did like Marley Fest, and that was cool. But it's always nerve wracking for me.
Yeah.
Like, cause my wheels spin, and then I start to have that kind of redundant and thought, and then it just messes up my flow. And
Yeah.
so,
Yep. Yeah, I understand. I understand what you mean by that. Yeah, for sure. So like, what's it like for you when you're kind of like sitting back? Because I think one of my favorite explanations of like a producer was the guy Brother Ali from Rhymesayers Entertainment.
Yeah.
He was talking about Ant, the guy who's produced for Atmosphere, and you know, who are producers for Slug and is part of Atmosphere and all that. And he was like, he's kind of like the pitcher at the home run derby who's trying to lay that pitch right there smack in the middle so you can just bink, tee that thing out of there, you know. So what's it like for you, like, and you can, you know, when you're sitting there, especially when you're at the show and your beat comes on and your homies are flowing over the top of this thing and people are vibing, you know, what are you feeling at that moment, you know?
I'm probably thinking, I'm like, God, this beat again, because I've already listened to it a million times.
Yes, that's what I was looking for.
But usually I turn to the person, whoever I'm with, and I'm like, I made that beat.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think the obligatory,
You look at them, it's not finished yet.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah, right.
It's not finished
It's
yet.
like, oh, that's not the master
Even though they
version.
rapped on it, and they're already
Yeah.
selling albums at the show.
It's
I'm
not.
like,
It's not.
mixed. It's not mixed yet.
I didn't mix it down yet. Sorry, guys.
No, but I mean, I enjoy that. I've always, I mean, for the past handful of Fab Deuce records, I've always had tracks on there, and I enjoy that. And I'd like to produce more for people. I've just been so consumed with graphic design and doing stuff like that.
Which you're great at, by the way.
Yeah, he's awesome at it.
Good
Yeah, which I
stuff,
don't think Todd gets a lot of credit for what he brings, at least visually, just kind of to the digital space in Denton. And yeah, I mean, you talk about getting on. He was always doing, kind of double duty. Like he was like getting on stage. That was kind of like his. He was also producing. He was also, doing graphic design and doing all those things. So I think that he doesn't get a lot of credit for, I mean, the Octopia logo. I mean, the Fab Deuce, artwork. I mean, there's countless artwork he's done. Yeah,
My artwork.
your artwork. I mean,
Yeah.
Gitmo Music artwork. I mean, Cash and Respect artwork. I mean, almost any major label that is at least in the Denton kind of stratosphere. He's had a hand in.
Yeah.
And with our company Real Rad Records. So I think that people are like, "Why haven't seen you on stage?" It's like, yeah, because I'm doing 50 other things.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
so I think that Todd doesn't get a lot of credit for what he brings in that area, or in multiple areas, I should say.
What I like about the flyers, or just anything that you do, as well as, and I'm going to put this as PC as I can, there's never a large-chested woman with a bottle of champagne,
Yeah.
like the same thing that you see over and
Oh,
over.
yeah.
It just looks
Yeah.
cheesy. It looks arrogant. It's not real. It's
played out.
falsified.
It's just played out.
It's like, that's not, your flyer shouldn't be what wants people to come to your show.
Yeah.
It should be like the names that are on there, and so like when you are, because this is some people ask me, because I kind of do my own thing, but I don't go from scratch like you do. I go to Canva and I kind of have some layouts that they use, and I search through photos and put things together. But like, what's the process for you with that, the designing, when you're kind of coming up with, especially like the video you made for me, which is awesome. So how does that kind of stuff come about?
I mean, essentially, you just kind of figure out what it's going to be all about, and are you going to go the route of photography or illustration, or maybe a 3D route or whatever. But you had kind of already established kind of the look of it and certain aspects, and so you just kind of run with that. You try to make everything as consistent as possible. That way, it gets the message across. It's not there's not 3 different flyers for a show that all look different, and people are like, well, I'm going to this one, but those 2 are actually the same. So it just kind of depends. I mean, some things are harder, some things are easier. I mean, it just depends on the idea.
Yeah. Well, Digo, I want to play a track.
Okay.
So which one can I play, my man? What should we choose? Is it Ghetto Box Utopia or
It's the radio edits.
Radio Edits?
So you'll see Better in My Head Digo radio edits. It's right above that. Go back, and then it's that go up one. It's that.
Oh.
Yeah, there we go.
I get like item blindness sometimes. I swear. It's like sometimes I'll go to the closet, I open it up, I'm like, no, the vacuum's not in there, and I close it, and then I'll look around, come back, and it's right there, staring at me.
You're too close to the art.
There's
it's
different
like
realities
You're like
out there,
painting.
man, I
You're painting
swear.
with this close. Like, you step back and you're like, I didn't know I was painting that.
Right on, man. Well, let's go ahead. Let's play one of these tracks here. Which one would you like to choose? Blind Tiger or Eat That Dough?
Blind Tiger is produced by Juicy the Emissary.
Okay.
Eat That Dough is featuring AV the Great
Yeah.
and Brother B. So it's whatever you want to play.
I've got to play some Juicy, dude. If there's a beat by that guy, I'm listening
yeah.
to it. Even at the block party that went down, the Nightmare on Elm Street block party that
Yeah.
happened. Like one of my friends was like, "Hey, what is this? Like you're playing?" And I was like, "Look, even if you're not gonna see me, go see this guy, Juicy the Emissary. Like you've never heard of him, he doesn't play a whole lot of shows.
Yeah.
But you need to go listen to his stuff because Kmart Shoppers is gonna drop soon, and it's awesome.
He's my favorite producer in Denton, and he's just a good friend, a good guy, the Blind Tiger is a record that, I made this record, a long time ago, actually, but I just haven't released it, and kind of Better in My Head is a mixtape that I've collected songs over, almost like a 2-year period.
Yeah.
I was at we called it the Ghetto Box. It was on Denton Street. We had Richard Haskins was staying there. He was staying in the shed right behind us. And
That's
he was
awesome.
He was
Just so casually, just crashing.
he was crashing there, and we made 3 records there. And the first record was Richard Haskins' Denton County Blues, which that is on Real Rad's Bandcamp.
Yep.
And then we made Ghetto Box Hoopty Music. And then the third record we made is Better in My Head, this mixtape. And
Nice.
so that was just kind of a short little story of kind of what we were doing at the Ghetto Box. And this one was The Blind Tiger is a track that Juice the Emissary. He made a record. It was just a producer's record. It was just instrumentals, and he called it "The Beach You Never Heard." And then it just kind of got around that everybody was like, well, you know, he's like, you know, make some
he
rhymes
kind of
to it.
encouraged people to
Yeah.
like take the beats, and he was like, whatever, you know, first come, first serve.
Yeah.
So.
And he was going to make a record called the Raps You Never Heard, kind of like a supplementary type thing, and have them together. And so I made this track with it, and I just never really had a platform to kind of release it. I kind of just, I mean, I showed it to some people, and I think I released it maybe on YouTube for a little bit, but then I took it down.
Yeah.
And then I decided, I was like, I want to collect some songs and kind of put a project together. And so I saved this song for quite some time, and yeah, it's Blind Tiger is basically, I guess it's a speakeasy. It's kind of a speakeasy vibe. And so I guess a long time ago they used to call speakeasies either blind tigers or blind pigs. And they would have a show, how they would kind of get around the kind of, I guess the prohibition of the time was that they would sell tickets to a show. So you'd go see a blind tiger or a blind pig, and you would see some kind of show, but secretly they were serving
Like free booze after the
yeah,
show.
exactly. So really that's what you were paying for. It was just kind of a way to kind of, you know, figure it out. So that's kind of the vibe of the track. So Juice the Emissary and me, Diggo.
Nice. All right, man. Well, this right here is Blind Tiger. Let's get this track pulled up here. Let's go ahead. Let's make sure we got some good volume going here.
I've been working hard, I need that paycheck. I got bills and other shit they ain't paid yet. Got a credit card, but that's the way to debt. Money short is kinda funny, David Spade, I guess. Still going out, still blazing, hazy mind, kinda like the fog when it drifts. Through the night lurking, you know how that gets. It was something like the wind, see the kite lift. One life to live, I live it cause it's a nice gift. I mean the present, that's why I got the lights lit. Doc holiday season, I get so sick. I'll be your Huckleberry baby, just go with it. I got some vices kinda like Miami Mice. I'm getting right, I'm trying to get it on tonight. Now baby, give me a kiss, and I think you miss. Same spot as last time, reminisce. In the moment, I can only do what feels right. And tonight, I'm
Yeah, I like that.
All right, JT.
Yeah, get my chest on.
Yeah, you definitely are.
I don't care.
Yeah, that's super tight.
So chill, got an ill disposition. I choose what I do, that's right, it's decisions. I see the future now, cause I got the vision. Sometimes it blurs up, but I'm still all in it. 5950, fitted, it's authentic. Trying to run this mother like Emmett. Catch 22,
edit.
oh
Thank
no,
you.
I'm not timid. I go so hard, the cold beat
You can either
tries to
cut it out
mimic.
or run it back
No
through.
limit.
Look, man, we've had
No
Richie Flow in here, all right? So,
Yeah.
Oh,
we
God.
gotta edit some of those
So
tracks
fresh
too.
as a skunk.
Oh, well.
I had to run that
Feel
flip on
like
him.
the king of the hill, but not Hank. No, you really can't. Cause I got a crew that's strong as oak tree. You don't know me, so
yeah, that's
look,
juicy.
homie. I see through you like
I know, man.
In the moment, I can
Feel his vibes, dude.
what feels right.
Kid just knows what he's
And
doing.
tonight I'm zoning, so I think I'll do what I like. If you hating, I don't care. No, I don't care. Cause I'm on cloud 9 and you're not there. In the moment,
man, this
I
track
can
sounds so
only
good.
do what feels
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
And
it's,
tonight I'm zoning, so I think I'll do what I like.
I mean, it's easy when you got a beat like
If you
that.
hating,
It's like
I don't
ABC
care.
1, 2, 3. It's like, ah, great track.
yeah, exactly. You know? He's so good with those 808 kicks that he does in there too. Like pitching those differently, that's always been a struggle for me. You know, 808 kicks have always been my demon.
Yeah.
And his drums are so simple.
Yeah, but they also have his own kind of like rhythm. He almost has like, it reminds me of Timberland, how he has that rhythm where you think it's gonna happen and it doesn't happen, then he brings it back in, but he never like
Cold world
loses.
trying to bundle up some money.
Exactly,
Dream
yeah.
like a bear
And that's-
paw in the honey.
I was watching,
Eyes wide
you guys know
shut, don't believe the
Flume,
luck, got my
you know,
life in
very
my
big
hands,
electronic
don't try to
artist.
take it from
I was
me.
watching an interview with
We
him
can
the other
clash
day, and
like
they're like,
Titans do,
you know,
or even vampires
he
versus
was like, I just wanted to
license
have
to
music
fight
where
with
like
you.
you
If I
thought it
have
was gonna
to,
hit at that
I will.
part,
Got
but it
the
didn't,
will,
but it
will,
still
will.
made
That means I
sense.
will,
Like,
but
and
I'm
then
a
brought like
chill.
exactly what you just
Champagne
said.
on
And I
ice,
find that is like what really makes a lot of, especially the beat, like the drums. So it's like creating those spaces in between certain portions and taking a kick out and just having just that hit there, or maybe having your snare on the one at first and then going back into something else can really surprisingly change the way that your brain processes that information when it's coming in and just that feeling that it creates.
Yeah, I feel like Juice has got that kind of tendency, like Dilla,
Yeah.
to have the kind of the late, like the dragging drums a little bit.
Yeah, that
where it's
swing.
not, where it's not always on. It's like sometimes a little bit late, but
Yeah.
it still works.
Yeah, it's not so quantized. It almost has a human touch to it,
Yeah.
and that's what I like about.
That was great, man.
Thanks.
I really like that. That should come out.
I also did a track off that
did, yeah.
album, and it was funny because it was parallel thought because we both did. Mine was called Film Noir, and it was basically about like it had a 20s feel to it too. So it was kind of weird that we both kind of put out something like of a similar idea independently.
Yeah,
That's cool.
same wavelength.
Yeah, definitely, man. But yeah, that beat was fresh. I enjoyed it, man. Yeah, we've had quite a few people tuning in, leaving little comments here and there. I don't know. Matt Paul says I'm fixing to pull out an airhead on y'all. Y'all can assume. Dylan Withers says Denton AF. We all know what that means.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dylan, for keeping it PC up there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have people who say things on here. I'm like, dude,
It's like, come on.
you can't do that.
Be like,
you know?
it's 12 noon. Come
Yeah.
on. It's like, come
guys.
on, man.
Yeah.
It's early for the Saturday.
Someone one time was like, because our friends will broadcast this at their restaurant that they work at, and they'll be, and like one time somebody just commented, they were like, our servers are terrible. It's like, come on, man. First off, I don't need this information on the feed, right? Like just complaining the servers are awful here. You know?
Is this not Yelp?
Yeah. Take this business
Yeah.
somewhere else, man. That was good stuff. So yeah, like, you know, the hip hop scene, you know, we've kind of talked about it, and like, I personally really enjoy what, like, as of late, like I've seen a lot of good stuff going on. You know, I see I see bands playing with hip hop groups and combining that all together, and then, you know, you've got a lot of different people coming to shows, which is what I've seen. Like I played last night, and I looked up, and there was a pretty packed house, you know, at 10:15 at Abbey Underground.
Yeah.
I was
Nice.
happy to see
That's still early.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I was happy to see the turnout, you know. So, you know, I feel like the direction that music is headed and things that are happening, especially in the area, is awesome, you know. And like you guys said, we will, you know, you'll always find a way.
Yeah.
You know, if
Definitely.
you want it bad enough, you're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
water's going to find the ocean.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's going to find the
yes,
ocean.
exactly. But, man, I want to play this other track, too. So what's funny is when I met AV, first time I ever met him was last year, and my buddy had been DJing for him, like all just around, you know, playing tracks and all that. And I was just like kind of coming into my own as far as like figuring out who do I want this persona to be, because I went through a bunch of different personas before I fell on like this whole Kind Beats vibe.
Yeah.
And I had made like this kind of like ravey remix of Ludacris's Move, you know,
Yeah.
Way, you know, and it like had this weird kind of droppy house silly thing that it did, and AV was kind of chilling, and Waldy was like, hey, check this out, and AV was just kind of like went like this, and he was like, this is weird. He's like, this is some ravey stuff, you know, and I just started cracking up, you know, because like I didn't know who this guy was, he didn't know who I was, but I was like, yeah, I know, and then I went back home and like, okay, I gotta fix this, Like,
Yeah.
He's
you
like,
know.
I might be able to get on this.
I would say Juicy is my favorite producer in Denton, and I would say AV is my favorite rapper in Denton. I think he's kind of at the forefront, at least on the you know, the verge of, you know.
I see him being commercially successful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
he's to me he's at the brink of that, you know. And this was recorded at the Ghetto Box, and
Nice.
it's heavily edited, so.
Okay. That's all right, man. We asked you to, and if that, you know, hey, we appreciate the efforts.
Yeah, but this is definitely a different vibe. This is definitely more
Yeah.
almost like an American grime type vibe.
Nice.
Hey, say, give me that beat, I'ma eat that. I'ma eat that. I'ma eat that. I'ma eat that. Give me that. I'ma eat that. I'ma eat that. Yeah, I'ma eat that. Give me that I'ma eat that. I'ma eat that.
I just like an ad-libs,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, because the Ghetto Box is like a space stop. This is the biggest
Probably,
studio.
yeah, actually,
Yeah, and then you just gotta, just a bunch of hip hop artists just going in there going, whoop.
Just enjoy the Ghetto Box.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what always cracks me up about records sometimes is like, there's some guy in a booth with millions of equipment around him and he's going, yeah. Like, yo, man, if we could do that whole one more time.
I gotta knock out these ad libs. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Hold up.
What's really funny is whenever the music, you don't hear the music, you just hear them.
Yeah,
when
when
you're just doing the ad libs, no music, no
Yeah.
it's just them. So every so often it's just, whoop.
Yeah, this kind of open booth for book show.
Yeah.
He'd be like, I'm recording. He'd be like, turn around and be like, shut up. All right, everybody
cracking up.
stop talking.
Yeah, man.
And then that's all you'd hear. It's just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me and my buddies, man, I used to live down in Irving with these two other cats, and like we all liked rapping, and me, I took, I was trying to really learn how to make music. My other buddy did it for a little bit more fun, and he's a really great DJ, but he just made beats for fun, and so he would make silly beats, and we would go and we'd rap over them, and every once in a while, man, like we'll be hanging out, and he'd be like, let's see what's in this file, and we'll just click through it, and it's the silliest names, like my name was Mullet Mike, and I would wear this fake mullet.
That's crazy. His name was Mullet Mike. He had a hip hop group called
it
Mullet
was
Mike.
me, Corey Claire, that's good, and Wild Bill.
No
And we
way.
had a group called Mullet Mike.
That's amazing.
Performed quite a few times.
That's amazing.
It's like some kind of cosmic connection just happened.
So my
was
buddy
weird.
would call me Mullet Mike, and just for the fun of it, just have the silly names. I'd be like, yo, this is Mullet Mike on a track.
That's insane.
I don't know why we settled on that name, but it was just.
There's a
I
reason
think
we
we loved how abstract it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they'd be like, Mullet Mike's playing. They're like, well, who's this Mike? And it's like, well, no, it's 3 guys.
What's up with his mullet?
Yeah, it stemmed from this idea that I was like the opposite of a Magic Mike per se.
It's like you see that
You're
Chris Farley
just
doing
a trashy
Chippendales.
version
Yeah,
of Mullet.
yeah.
You see the Chippendales like Patrick Swayze's like dancing Chippendales, and then Chris Farley goes out there.
Yes.
I don't know.
That was
You got some great moves, man.
That was
great moves, baby.
I actually might need to watch that when I get home.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Just to feel, but yeah, just to feel better. Like the guy he's my mentor teacher, and so we were talking the other day, and I started bringing up Tommy Boy, and how it was like, it definitely provides you with one of the best sales pitches you've ever heard.
Yeah.
And he was like. He looked at me like real seriously, like eating his lunch. He was like, "I still believe it's one of the greatest movies ever made in American cinematic history."
It's dead serious.
Yeah, just like
It's not a
mid
movie.
eat.
It's a
Just
film.
like listen to me right now.
Yeah.
Like that was not a movie. That was an experience
Yeah.
of
That was
a
a
lifetime.
film.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So good stuff, man. I know we kind of like talked through that track right there, but I'm still
Yeah.
able to hear the vibes and hear.
But that's always a good thing. If you can just talk over and it's not odd. If you're not just sitting
Yup.
like, wait a second, what am I listening to?
Yeah.
If you can just kind of live your life while the music's playing, that's always
Yup.
a good sign.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more on that. I'm gonna put a little background tunes on because that's just what I do.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
always a little awkward when somebody's like, they're like, listen to this track, and then they just like look at you the whole time.
Oh yeah, and it's just kind of that
Yeah.
awkward silence,
Yeah.
and you're like, yeah,
and
this
they're
isn't
like,
that
yeah,
good.
that's dope,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
And you're
yeah.
like, yeah,
They're like,
that's all right.
sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, but if you could just kind of, if everything keeps going, and then it feels like it's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So
Man, for years, I tortured my buddies with terrible beats.
I'm surprised nobody told me. They were like, dude, just quit.
Well, maybe you were good, and I just
I don't know.
I've always been
I've lived-
slow to get good at anything.
Yeah.
That's why I'm almost 30, and I'm
Yeah.
just now about to graduate. You
Well,
know,
I
it's-
mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I was on the 10-year plan.
yeah, I was definitely on that.
Definitely.
The
Yeah.
people are like 10 year, and I'm like, no, 10 year.
10 years.
I technically
Yeah.
have tenure
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, basically.
You know, man, there was this one guy. Okay, so funny that you say that. So when I first started going back to college, I was down in Irving, and I was just going to like the community college down there. And there was this guy, and he was this French guy, and he taught U.S. government, this French guy, and a heavy French accent. And so the whole year he kept going, and if you turn this in early, you get TM points. TM points. So I was hearing TM, and in my head, I thought, well, you're turning it in early, time management. Like just automatically time management points. Turns out the guy was saying 10.
Yeah.
T-E-N, the whole semester. You get 10 points. 10 points. The whole time I was hearing TM.
TM.
You're getting TM points. You get time management points. And like, luckily I've been turning these in the whole time, not knowing that I was getting like hundreds of free points on
Yeah.
I'm racking up time management
good
points.
news.
You're like, wait, what are those?
Yeah,
for
and
again?
this guy's name was Bach. You know, Dr. Bach. So
Wow.
he was a cool dude, to
I
talk to,
gotta-
which was interesting because he was from France, but his last name was Bach, which is like I think German or Austrian.
Yeah.
It might
you
be
know?
Austrian. I don't know.
Yeah. Did either of y'all ever see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Of course.
Okay. Do you remember? You brought up Mozart. Remember when Mozart is in the mall, like playing? Like,
Yeah.
Like, dude, I would love to hear some Mozart beats nowadays. Like, can you imagine if you sat him down in front of this and just like Mozart, take like the next 25, 30 years and then just come out. you know?
Yeah, I think about that all the time because I listen in my car. I mean, I can't stand driving, so I have to have like classical music just to kind of,
Yeah.
calm me down. Just so I just like, okay, everything's cool. And yeah, I listen, the box of Mozart, and I always think, I was like, what? I mean, these guys had to write it down. Like they had to, and then they had to play it. There wasn't no like press the record, okay, delete, okay, edit, okay, copy paste, okay. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's mind-boggling thinking. What they could have produced.
Yeah, I play classical music in the classroom for the kids all the time, and they're like, or some jazz. And one
Yeah.
time, my favorite comment this kid made about the jazz, he was like, "Hey, Mr. L," and I was like, "What's up?" And he was like, "I feel like I've been on hold for the last 35 minutes." And so lately, like he'll come in and he'll be like, "Oh no." We're on hold
We're
at
on
customer
hold
service. Like we're on hold.
You should play some Tijuana brass for him then, and some Spanish flea, and then he'll really feel like
Man,
he's
we
on
just
hold.
Oh, man.
we had a field day on Friday, and my mentor teacher, we did this like whole thing where we took like a pegboard and we just stuck a bunch of lollipops in it, right?
Yeah.
And like you pull the lollipop out, and if one had a green bottom, there was only a certain amount. If it had a green bottom, you got a big bag of candy that we had. If you got the blue one, you got a $15 iTunes gift card.
Nice.
You have no idea how much these kids freak out about these iTunes gift cards and dum-dums and like bags of candy. We had gamblers over there, man. Like kids were like 8 tickets, just like laying it
wow.
down.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm gonna go buy more tickets.
Yeah.
I hate this dum-dum game. I can't
Yeah.
win. Like kids were like 8 tickets and they just grab 8 dum-dums like
Yeah.
in one handful. No, and just be like,
And it's that one kid that buys just one ticket.
yeah,
He's just like, oh,
dude,
sweet.
there was this one kid.
He's like,
and
I
he
didn't even care.
He walked up and he just pulls it out and he was like, I got one. And I was like, oh, you want an iTunes gift card? And he was like, oh, sweet. Like, not really excited
Yeah.
and just like went about his day. Meanwhile, all these kids like sprinting back. Yeah.
The
And
kid's like, I'm on Spotify.
yeah, at the end, we were like, hey man, you give us 5 tickets, we'll dump all this candy off this thing right here for you. He was like, are you serious? And we were like, yeah. And his eye, he was just like, and like we did it, and like I thought that like maybe kids had gotten over the excitement of candy. No, it was like, it was like if you were in Times Square with a thing of popcorn around the pigeons and just went like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
It
swarming.
was pretty incredible. But being around those guys, those young kids, has given me such an idea of what they view as hip hop now, and the difference of what I think is hip hop, and so like influences is what I start to think about, like who's influencing these kids, how are they thinking, what's causing them to say, yeah, this is like what I want to hear, you know what I mean? When you were growing up, what were kind of the influences that you had?
Well, I mean, like I said before, the Outcast Aquemini was my first record, my
Yeah.
first experience with hip hop, at least that I bought, that I purchased myself. But Outkast, Tupac, Notorious B.I.G., Nas, Jay-Z, those were my kind of my heroes, at least in the hip hop realm. And I just always believed that hip hop is a culture. It's not just music.
Yeah.
It's something that that kind of whenever things the chips are down, or even whenever the chips are up, it's something that you kind of it's a lifestyle, it's a culture that makes you go, okay, this is how I'm living my life. Like, to me, it's my everyday. Like even I'm gonna be making music and I'm gonna be living the hip hop lifestyle for the rest of my life. I think that hip hop to me is it's an American thing. Like, to me, that's what it is.
Yep.
And it's part of American culture. It's part of our it's part of our whole kind of
History.
history, and that's what. Yeah, that's definitely why I love it. You know, that's why it resonated with me, and yeah, those were my influences. You know, and then in production wise, you know, the Timberlands, the Dr. Dre's, you know, the Dillas. Those were all my. I mean, the DJ Premiers. Those were my influences.
That was something that I was talking about with a buddy the other day, and Todd, I'll kind of throw this question to you now with the production. Is like, there's, you know, no doubt that like Metro Boomin and these guys know what they're doing. You know, they've got the formula down. Pull the lever, there's another one out the window. But and you know, I could just be, you know, getting older or whatever, but there's a nostalgia that's been lost in the crafting of a beat, I feel, as far as at least mainstream wise. You know, like when Forgot About Dre comes on, you know, or like when brung brung bung 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 bung, when those pianos hit, you know, everybody knows what it is. And I feel like, you know, it's not totally gone. There's still it still exists, but just like that iconicness, you know, that those beats held. So for you, who do you view as like some of the top producers that, you know, in the past? Some
I mean,
know, just guys
DJ
that you
Premier,
really like.
Dr. Dre, Q-Tip, DJ Shadow, Qbert did a lot for hip hop, like Bay Area, and kind of changing that up. But I think, you know, Kanye West is really, really good.
Yeah, whether you don't like him,
Yeah.
you can't deny that.
I mean,
the
he's
guy
got,
can make a
he's got the Grammys.
Yeah,
he's got
yeah.
the Grammys.
Timbaland,
Exactly.
J-Rock, like,
J-Rock.
dude, I mean, those guys are amazing. It's really nice to see two really good producers team up on a project. Like 2020 Experience,
Oh, yeah.
that was amazingly produced. Like, that's undeniable.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Justin Timberlake used to be the guy you wanted to hate. You know what I mean? Because all the girls loved him, and you know, like, but you were like, I hate his music. And
Yeah.
then he kind of matured into what he is now, and it's just kind of being in the music business, you kind of understand what goes into that and how really, really good it is. Like, I've recently become a fan of Bruno Mars because the production, it's so on point.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like how tight Earth, Wind, and Fire was, and how tight the band
Zapp
was.
and Roger.
Yeah,
you know,
like exactly, yeah, like stuff like that. It's reminiscent, and that's why it works, is because it's reminiscent of that more vintage era of when quality was key, and it was a lot better. It's not this kind
And
of,
you know
like,
how hard they're working on it. You know?
yeah, or it's not just like you know, Panda by Designer, where
Yeah.
it's just, you know, this guy just basically kind of, I don't know, you know, I mean, they could be brilliant, they could be bamboozling us, I mean, but it seems like they don't put a lot of thought into, we're in the age of the producer, because it's kind of, the rapper's kind of secondary. What they're saying is not really substance, it's just more about the feel of the beat, and they're just humming and you know, it's almost like a percussive instrument at that point. Like,
It's like having a coloring book with like 6 sentences underneath the picture.
really, yeah, there's just
Like, there's some words there, but it doesn't really do much.
yeah,
you
and it's
know?
like, fine, you got the flow figured out, but now put some story behind it, or, you know, put some thought into
I mean,
it.
No, I
mean, I can't knock the new stuff, because I mean, ultimately, it's that there's just waves of creation. You know, like just in art. You know, you had expressionism, you have cubism, you have different waves of art, and now I think that when you think of iconic, I think it's because there was only a certain amount of people that had access to that, and we're really doing it, and we're figuring out how to do it. It was just a lot harder to make beats a long time ago. And then now it's just it's so saturated. I mean, any bedroom producer can just get on SoundCloud and throw their stuff on there. So finding those iconic things, it's a lot harder, because you're shuffling through more things to do it, and plus just the pace of releases, trying to keep up with the paces. Sometimes they don't. It's not crafted like it was. And so I think that finding those iconic things, but I think there's still people out there. I mean, you got the Kendrick Lamars, you got the guy, a new guy that I've heard, Anderson .Paak is doing some awesome stuff. I mean, D'Angelo recently released a new album, I think last year. And then there's people that are still crafting and still taking the time.
I still like Ryan Lewis from Macklemore, man. Him,
Yeah.
as far as a
Yeah.
producer, he was a photographer, a creative individual, and like, you know, he puts together some good beats, you know, whether you like Macklemore or what he does over it, you know, but when you just listen to Ryan Lewis's music, which he's done as well, he's made just Ryan Lewis stuff, like, you know, yeah, the guy knows what he's doing and it's well crafted, you know. And then man, I'm drawing a blank. J. Cole. J. Cole did, you know, like, you know, I thought Power Trip was one of my favorite tracks when that song came out. Like, that hit me in a very good spot at a very right time. And I watched this video on YouTube of him explaining how he made that beat, and I was unaware that he produced a lot of his own stuff.
Yeah.
And I was pretty impressed with that. You know, I've always enjoyed J. Cole's style of flow, you know.
J. Cole's impressive. I mean, his record, I think it was at Forest Hills, is the one where he had no features. I mean, he sold, and he's double platinum.
Yeah.
2 million records, and it's him.
Yeah.
It's him. I mean, he probably had some other producers involved, obviously, and sound engineers and whatnot. But you know, it's him rapping. It's him.
Yeah.
It's his voice. In this modern era, selling, you know, going double platinum just by yourself. You know, you're not asking Jay-Z or the Lil Waynes or anything. It's no, that's just him. You know? And so that's impressive. And then you find out that he's also a producer. He makes his beats, and definitely, I was impressed by J. Cole whenever I found out a little more information about him.
That's why I like Barry White. Once I figured out that he played a lot of the instruments,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I mean, he's the maestro. Once I
Yeah.
figured that out, I was like, oh man, this guy's total G.
Yeah.
Not only is he playing the part and, you know, singing it, and he's got the whole image. It's like, and he made the music too. Like,
Yeah.
Come on.
It's like Michael Jackson's great, and then you realize there's this guy named Quincy Jones behind all these records. And it's like Quincy is really who, like, you give your tip of the hat to.
Exactly,
No doubt
yeah.
Jackson performed it incredibly, and the execution was amazing, but like, and I didn't realize, like, when I started doing my Monday night show where I was playing records, and a lot of it was just for me to have an excuse to sit and listen to records,
Nice.
like find samples.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't realize how many, when I'd read on the back of them, I would see Quincy Jones' name next to so many records that I've played that are from the 70s and the early 80s and the late 70s, you know, kind of the funk disco genre eras where pop and all that started to kind of blend together. But I had no idea, like, how behind all of this guy was.
I mean, it's like Rick Rubin. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, yeah.
People have no idea.
Yeah.
The kind of the broad scope of what he's done. I mean, that's ideally what I would love
Red
to
Hot
do.
Chili Peppers, Slayer, Dixie Chicks.
Yeah.
And that's not to even mention Beastie Boys, LL Cool J.
Exactly.
And then Jay-Z.
Yeah. That's what a lot of people never realized in the 99 Problems video, who the guy with the beard was.
Yeah.
They're like, who's
You know?
that old guy?
It's your
like,
boy.
yeah.
He's
That's
just
the
hanging
guy
out.
behind
That's
like
the
probably a lot of
guy.
your favorite music.
That
yeah.
ZZ Top looking dude right
Yeah.
there is your man.
When you start
right there.
discovering, you know, your favorite producers, and you start seeing their name more and more, the more you kind of investigate, and then you it's like, it dawns on you, like, these guys must be living in the studio. Like, to be on this many projects, I mean, obviously, you know, they're great, you know, so it probably comes to them a little faster, but they must be there just in the studio all the time.
Yeah.
It's like
you know.
seeing J.J. Abrams as a producer on.
Oh, and everything. Bad Robot.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I swear
got
it's
his
like
hands
everything
in
that comes
anything
out, it's like
sci-fi.
producer, like,
Yeah.
just went through his studio.
Yeah.
It's like, slap my name on that.
And I think people sometimes get confused about, like, the difference between a producer on a movie and a producer's
Yeah.
music.
It
Like, a
is different.
producer can do a lot of different things in a movie. You know, he might provide some money to help that film be produced, actually made. You know, people forget the word production means something is created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, something is made.
Ultimately,
because of
that's
this.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you help make it happen.
Yeah,
And
exactly. You know, and then I don't even, like, if someone could explain to me, like, you've got producer, executive, assistant producer, executive producer. Like, there's these 3 different tiers of producer.
I think it just depends how much money you throw in. it.
Exactly.
Or how much
think-
time.
Can I get
time and effort,
executive
yeah.
before my name?
Anybody that has executive, you know that there's some money involved.
Yeah, it's like when you get a business card from a lawyer, it says Esquire afterwards, just because they can.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
got that from a guy one time. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
Like, you know, it was like John Diamond Thomas III,
Yeah.
Esquire. Esquire. Yeah. You know? Like, man, this guy is official. Well, fellas, it's been a blast, man. I told you guys that an hour was going to go by quick.
Yeah.
We went
that
for
was
like an
quick.
hour and 15 on
All
that
right.
one. So it's been good, man. A lot of fun, dude. So I appreciate y'all coming in, man.
Thank you for
Like I
having
said, I
us.
wanted to be able to get you on, and we've had some few technical glitches happen here and there,
Yeah.
but you know, and then, you know, sometimes we got to broadcast games here. Like, I had to cancel on Munster, you know, because we were broadcasting the UNT
My
game.
dude.
Yeah, he was there last
good
night.
Dude, good dude.
Yeah, he's what's awesome about that guy is you're like, this guy's got a wife and kids and a real job at home.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and here he is flowing on stage,
Yeah.
killing it, you know.
Definitely.
So yeah, he gives me hope as I grow older. you know.
And I think if you really love music and you really love what you're doing,
You'll never quit.
it's not a thing that you're just gonna
Yeah.
put aside. And I think that and time is the ultimate kind of like, I guess, filter. You know, it's the ultimate like, you know, like if you were never serious about it or you're never really in love with it, then it's going to escape you because you never were really into it in the first place. You were, you know, there was maybe the intent was wrong. Maybe, you know, you were hanging out with certain friends or whatever the case may be. But if this is something that you really love to do, and regardless what community you're in or where you're at, you know, you're gonna do it. You're gonna do music. You're gonna, like we were saying before, you're gonna find a way. And you know, especially, you know, music culture such as Denton and a great town like this, it's gonna find a way.
Yeah.
It's gonna find a way. And the people that love to do it, that want to do it, they're gonna connect. They're gonna connect, and things are gonna happen. You know.
Yeah. One you know, before we do go, like one thing that I had to kind of realize and was that you know, there was always a thought in my mind like, oh, I have to make it to Dallas. I have to play in Dallas. I have to play in Dallas. But then it was like when I started meeting you guys and other people who were like just doing their thing in Denton and were like successful and were happy and were like, I've got, this is going on, you know, this, you know. And it wasn't like this is all that I need, but it was like I'm gonna make this work, and then we're gonna continue to expand from there. That's when I was like, you know what? If I can just get a city behind me to start,
Yeah.
you know, then you'll progress further and further and further. And it was like meeting people like you guys and meeting Pudge and meeting Juicy and these other cats where I was like, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
These people exist.
Yeah.
And it made me feel better and more reassured that I was doing the right thing because other people were doing it and I liked what they were doing.
Yeah.
You know, if I was like, oh, these guys are doing it. They're successful. They're playing shows all over the place. People know who they are. People enjoy their product. They see what they're putting out. It's successful. So let's just do what they're doing. So I did copy the business model a little bit. You know?
We copied it from somebody
Yeah,
else.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
LA,
We all- yeah.
LA had their Compton, you know, and you hear guys like Run DMC where, you know, they were kind of coming out of a suburb that was to a bigger city, and so I think that like, you know, you kind of have to bloom where you're planted, you know, but you know, it doesn't mean that you can't expand. It doesn't mean that you can't go to Dallas, which you know. If I can plug the show, we have a show with
Do it.
Desi 5.
No. I don't know who's on the bill.
Yeah, I don't know who's on
When
the bill
is
either.
it?
It's a day before Thanksgiving.
Day before Thanksgiving.
Nice.
Crown and Heart
Crown
down in
and Heart.
Dallas on Greenville.
And that'll be a Ghetto Box performance.
Okay.
But I will be releasing the Better in My Head mixtape. That will
Nice.
be kind of like a release type,
Okay.
you know, thing. So we'll have, you know, the disc, you know, printed up and everything. But we do have pre-orders right now.
Okay.
Going on iTunes. If you want to go to our, you know, Facebook page, Real Rad Records, or realradrecords.com. So yeah, we have the Better in My Head mixtape pre-orders going on right now.
Nice.
There's 16 tracks on the mixtape. I mean, we got guys like AV the Great, Juicy the Emissary, characters on the record. We got Rekka Mike. I mean, we have some old school Dentonites like, you know, James Williams, Chase Duncan, good friends of mine. T Lit is on several records. He's produced, you know, several records. I produced a lot of the records, but excited to do this, and we're gonna have some more projects going out. I think Real Rad Records, what we initially did, we started this 2 years ago, and our first goal was just brand awareness. We just wanted people to know who we were. You know, we just wanted to get the name out there. And now that we've kind of established that, we have a platform and we've connected with more people. We're going to start concentrating on the artists and the individuals and do what our name is and make records. And we're excited to do that. We're excited to connect with other people, and really, you know, flourish in you know, in Denton. You know, we love Denton, and but doesn't mean that we can't take Denton to other places.
Yeah.
You know, Denton, I mean, Compton went across the world, and that's what we want to do with Denton in our kind of, you know, from our perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. You know, one thing that I always loved as well was when I first met Todd, he would ask like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And there was always the only if you want to. Like, I'm not trying to grab anything from you.
Yeah.
There was just a very genuine and honest vibe of Real Rad, and that's why I was always like, yeah, you know, let's do this. Whatever you guys want to do, I'm cool with it. You know, let's just make this happen because there's just a genuine niceness about you cats. So before we sign off, Todd, do you want to give anybody a shout out? You guys can shout out whoever you feel like. You know.
Man, no, just everybody in town. I mean, you know everybody. You know,
Quite a
you know
few.
who you. Yeah, you know who you are. I just there's
Yeah.
too many people.
Yeah.
But everybody out there, just love each other and be nice.
Yeah. How about you, man?
I like to shout out Indigo Bird Photography, Lucky Locks. I'd like to shout out Frankie Max. They just released a song, "Lead Me Away," which is an awesome song. You should go check that out. The mixtape "Better in My Head" is coming out November 21st. Release party will be the 23rd in Dallas. And I just want to say peace and love, and let's move forward, and let's create, let's make
Yes,
things.
sir. Yes, sir. Well, it was
Well said.
awesome to have you guys here.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Let's see. Next week. I don't even remember who I've got on next week. Somebody's coming on next week.
Someone's
know.
gonna be here.
I know that much. I know someone is
Yeah.
going to be here. Someone is going to be here. But it looks to be shaping up to be a pretty fun fall season around here. I'm
Right.
excited for it because the fall does bring people indoors a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
Does.
people start to show up to shows a little bit more. They're not going to East Side and sitting out there drinking
Patio.
12 and a half beers.
Right.
You know, sitting on the patio in the beautiful 80-degree weather. So that's what I like to do. And whenever I do get my hard drive back up and going, you know, and I'm back on that, you know, and when Music to Cuddle 2 Volume 2 comes out, love to work with you guys again on
Definitely.
doing something like that, and you know, make it a little bit bigger this year as
Oh,
well.
absolutely.
You know, so it's awesome, man. You can tune in tomorrow on Sunday. Oh, so now at the end of the interview, 11 people decide to tune in. I see.
Thanks,
I
guys.
see. That's all right though. That's awesome.
So, like,
we
we
hit
just
double
woke up.
digits, fellas. That's
We're
awesome.
hungover.
There we go.
Yeah, exactly. Just woke up. Yeah. Without the help of Eddie, we hit
Yeah.
multiple digits.
Oh,
today.
nice.
Without the help
Shout
of
out Eddie.
Yeah, shout out to Eddie.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can catch me tomorrow. We'll be back here on Sunday brunch, spinning a bunch of tunes. You can tune in, and then Monday night, as always, I'll be sitting here playing a bunch of vinyl records, chilling. So thank you so much again for coming on the show, fellas.
Thanks, man.
Y'all are awesome.
Thank
we
you, Mullet
appreciate
Mike.
everything y'all do. So Mullet Mike, yes. Shh, keep that under wraps,
Yeah,
man.
right,
Next thing you
okay.
know, people are gonna be like, "Yo, I'm going to go see Mullet Mike tonight."
Yeah.
No.
You might confuse some
No,
people.
that's not me. All right, well, y'all tune in with us next Saturday. We'll be chilling once again here on Sound Values. Until then, Denton, peace. Peace. Now if we can just get it to like